Bears trying to relive the Super Bowl shuffle while the Saints, well, they may just be the new America's team, but they play each other for the second time ever in the postseason. And we're breaking it down here on the VSiN NFL Preview. Alongside NFL.com's Pat Kirwan, I'm Jason Horowitz, exclusively here on CBS Sportsline. It's the NFC Championship game, Pat. And, you know, let's start off at the top, and it comes down to two quarterbacks, Drew Brees, Rex Grossman. Brees, you know, had some votes for MVP. Grossman had some votes for most inconsistent player of the year. Break down the two quarterbacks.
Well, I talked to Jeff Fisher today about it, wanted his take as a head coach, and he said this game will come down to turnovers. Unlike the other game, which we'll discuss later, he has other thoughts on that one. When you look at Rex Grossman in the last 5 weeks, these are scary numbers. Just 4 touchdown passes, 10 interceptions, those are turnovers, 12 sacks, and 2 fumbles. So if you think in the 5 games, that guy's going to give the ball back 2 times a game. You cannot give Drew Brees, a number 1 rated offense, the ball 2 extra times. Let's look at Brees. He is a killer on the road. They're the best scoring football team on the road, and in the last 3 road games, Atlanta, the Giants, and Dallas, 8 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. The turnover battle right now on paper looks like it'll be won by the Saints.
On paper, but on paper doesn't include the elements, and that would include the weather. And on the weather, the Saints didn't have to deal with that this season, and that could come into play.
Well, everyone thinks of it. I know the Bear fans I talk to, they're counting on a snowstorm. I don't think it's going to be like that. We don't have a crystal ball with the weather. But Drew Brees played at Purdue, and that kid Colston that no one's been able to stop, he played at Hofstra up in the cold. So I don't think the issue of the weather is a factor as it relates to intimidating the Saints. I will say this, the wind could eliminate the passing game for 2 of the 4 quarters. If that happens, then all of a sudden we're going to have to see that Saint team run the ball, and I think they're pretty good at that too.
Let's get in on that, though, the wind, if it affects the passing game, and go back to Chicago here, because Chicago's passing threat is down the field with Bernard Berrien, and Rex Grossman has that ability in this game because the Saints are susceptible to explosive play. We saw that against the Eagles. Break down these 2 receivers against the Saints.
Here's my rule of thumb on receivers. You know, I think Berrien will have his way with Fred Thomas, the corner, who's a little shaky for the Saints on the outside, but the corners are always directly related, and their success is related to the pass rush, and I think Will Smith is going to have a fine day rushing against John Tate, and he needs to protect Fred. The Saints are the number 2 pass defense. Those numbers are a little skewed because people like to run the ball against them. I do think Bernard Berrien is capable of having a big day. But to get him the ball in the deep game, they're going to have to be able to protect. And I think Charles Grant, Will Smith are going to get to him.
Are they going to be able to protect? We're going to take a look at the Saints' main 3 guys on the front line here. Charles Grant, Hollis Thomas, who's back from suspension, Will Smith, who is a Pro Bowler this season, 10.5 sacks to lead the Saints. Will they be able to protect, and then will they be able to run the football?
I took a look at Grossman against pressure, and he's not very good. And I think everyone understands that. We saw last week a lot of nickel blitzing, and he didn't even recognize the first few. And the interesting part, and why I think the Saints will come after him, first with their front 4, and then with pressure. I think they have 18 sacks from their back 7 people, is they know that this guy has a penchant for putting the ball on the ground or making a critical error. Against pressure during the season, the guy threw 5 interceptions. All right, and he only completed 32% of his passes. There'll be pressure. It'll start with the front, then we're going to see linebackers get involved. They are not going to let Grossman sit back there. If I'm the Bears, I try to avoid Grossman throwing the football. As much as I like your matchup, I think it's time for Thomas Jones and Ced Benson to get 35 carries.
I agree with you. Maybe 45 carries in this game if they have the ball that much time. On the other side here, let's talk about the Bears defense. And we know that they've struggled down the stretch. This is a game, this is the Bears defense since the St. Louis Rams. They're giving up 360 yards a game and nearly 26 points a game. Now, as we take a look at what the Saints offense did last week against the Eagles, it was a balanced attack. They had 435 yards, 208 on the ground, 227 through the air. The Bears don't have one aspect here where they can focus on and say, this is what we have to stop.
No, when you watch last week's game, here's a couple of things that would trouble me. You've got Urlacher. When he sees 1-back sets, he's going to check the 2 coverage, and they're going to play zone, and that makes him a deep zone dropper. He got caught a few times in the game reading pass on the snap of the ball, turning and sprinting for the deep middle, and it was a draw play, and it was a big play to Shaun Alexander. That concept is going to be in this game for the New Orleans Saints. Why would you go away from it? You get him caught in that situation, and you have to do it. And Urlacher is going to have to get out and go down the middle deep. Why? Because Reggie Bush will be in the slot trying to run a seam route. That's the route he has to hold off. He cannot afford to wait and guess on what it might be.
Bears and Saints met in the 1990 playoffs with the Bears winning 16-6 at Soldier Field. Who wins this one?
You know, I like the Saints in this game. Look, the Bears have a terrific team, and if they go to the Super Bowl, fine. But you've got a quarterback in Rex Grossman. When I break down the quarterbacks, I think it's pretty easy to accept that Drew Brees is the best of the two quarterbacks. The problem for the Saints is that run defense. But if the Saints can get out and get a little bit of a lead going and get the Bears away from the passing game, I think they'll have their way. They'll win this game close, but I like the New Orleans Saints to win it and keep the dream going.
I agree. In a close game, you like experience. And with that being said, I like Drew Brees as well in the New Orleans Saints. So we're in agreement here. Folks,
that's dangerous.
That's also a scary thing. It is a 3 o'clock kickoff, the NFC Championship game, the Saints and the Bears. And for more on this or the AFC Championship game, be sure to stay right here on CBS Sportsline. For Pat Kirwan, I'm Jason Horowitz. Enjoy the football. See you at the Super Bowl. Take care.